It's interesting. They are adding a lot of demand for Bitcoin, and it's good. They're getting rid of the fiat money world. They're accelerating the collapse of central banks. They're accelerating the collapse of states. But they are putting Bitcoin into the hands of clones of strategy. There is a risk when you are backing Michael Saylor or these other the clones of Michael Saylor, because getting away from the purest form of Bitcoin, you're custodying your Bitcoin outside of self-custody. So there's risks involved. Trump talked about Bitcoin. He's undermining the Fed because he wants cheap money to bail out the banks. Because as we just saw with the $5 trillion big, beautiful bill, he still works for the Wall Street bankers to keep the fiat money Ponzi scheme going. So he's no different in that regard. It's going to end badly.
Fiat currencies are collapsing at an alarming pace, which is why owning Bitcoin now is more critical than ever for protecting your future. That's the urgent warning from Bitcoin maximalist and crypto advisor Max Keiser, who says the $350 trillion global debt spiral is the direct result of central banks propping up markets instead of safeguarding money. With the Federal Reserve acting as a buyer of last resort, markets are distorted, long-term stability is eroding, and the financial system is on borrowed time. Keiser warns that if rate cuts are pushed through, inflation will soar and the dollar will weaken even further. In his view, the Fed is trapped, and no matter what it does, Bitcoin ultimately wins. Countries like El Salvador are already stacking Bitcoin in preparation for this shift, while the US clings to the illusion of dominance, despite no recent audit of Fort Knox and a lagging position in Bitcoin adoption. His prediction is bold. Bitcoin will replace the dollar as the global standard. Fiat is finished, and those still relying on it are running out of time. Stick around until the end, as Max Keiser explains why this transition could happen far sooner than most people expect.
It was so-called Greenspan put, where every time the market crashed, they would lower rates, for example, and allow for speculation to run rampant and keep going. And this has given us these ever higher prices in the stock markets and markets around the world, and the commensurate level of debt around the world. So now we have like $350 trillion of debt around the world. It's the highest debt to global GDP ever in history. And that's because these central banks switched their mandate from being inflation hawks to being market buyers, essentially. They're the buyer of last resort, not the lender of last resort. And so they've completely reinterpreted the Fed. So Powell, by keeping rates where he is now, his job, one of his jobs is defend the dollar and the purchasing power of the dollar. And if he lowers rates the way Trump wants him to lower rates, then he's going to accelerate inflation tremendously. And it's a huge risk to the dollar. And Bitcoin, of course, will skyrocket. And but it'll be extremely harmful to the economy. The idea that lower rates stimulate demand is a myth. That's just a Keynesian myth. That's just a mythical idea. It's not true. And but that's what Trump is believing, and his attack on the Fed is unwarranted. But I would say it's going to end badly. I would say that because Trump thinks that the dollar, he's very protective of the dollar. He wants the dollar to be world reserve currency. If any country doesn't use the dollar, we're going to do tariffs on them. We'll go to war with them. But the dollar, like all.
Still paying taxes on your crypto gains? What if you didn't have to? With ITrust Capital, you can buy and sell crypto inside a tax-advantaged IRA, giving you a smarter way to grow your portfolio without worrying about capital gains tax. That's why they're the #1 crypto IRA platform in America, with billions in tax-advantaged transactions. There are multiple ways to fund your account. You can make a contribution, transfer an existing IRA, or roll over an old 401k or employer plan. You'll get access to a wide range of digital assets, low fees, and 24/7 trading, all backed by secure, one-to-one asset ownership with institutional-grade custody. And if you have questions, ITrust Capital offers 100% US-based customer support with real people ready to help. Click the link, use code DOSE7, and get your $100 funding bonus today. Start building your crypto wealth, tax-advantaged, with ITrust Capital.
world reserve currencies has a lifespan, and that lifespan has ended. And so the dollar is at the end of its reign as world reserve currency, and Bitcoin will become the global standard. But Trump doesn't understand that. He doesn't understand Bitcoin. There's 5 levels of Bitcoin awareness. There's number 1 is, I just found out about Bitcoin. Here's how you fix it. Number 2 is, I love Bitcoin, buy my shitcoin. Number 3 is, Bitcoin is primarily a medium of exchange. Number 4 is, Bitcoin is primarily a store of value. Number 5 is Hyperbitcoinization. And just about everybody has to go through those 5 stages of awareness of Bitcoin. So when Trump is on level 2, I love Bitcoin, buy my shitcoin, right? Because he has his Trump coin, his meme coins, and all these other things. So he's only not even halfway through his Bitcoin education. He doesn't really understand Bitcoin profoundly or significantly. So he's going to make a lot of rookie mistakes. A lot of people get burnt out on meme coins and shit coins and altcoins, except in this case, he's going to destroy a country, his country, the United States. They're not getting the traction they should. Where's the Bitcoin strategic reserve? Where's that? It's not happening. Where's the audit of the Fort Knox? It hasn't happened. The U.S. says they have 200,000 Bitcoin. That's false. The 100,000 is owned by Bitfinex. So they don't have jack shit. I mean, we're going into a world where the U.S. is kind of bluff with a pair of 2s. Meanwhile, El Salvador has a couple of aces. We have a very high Bitcoin to capita ratio of over $100. So it's in the top 3, with Bhutan is highest. And Kazakhstan or some other country has a very high Bitcoin per capita as well. Then there's El Salvador. So those are the 3 countries that are leading the world in the Bitcoin revolution. The U.S. is nowhere in the top 10. It's lagging. There's a global hash war going on, and the U.S. is losing. The dollar and the Bitcoin cannot coexist. So they are beginning to realize this, and they're starting to hit the brakes in terms of getting some of this stuff passed.
Max Keiser says the U.S. is bluffing with a weak hand, no audit of Fort Knox, no meaningful Bitcoin reserves, and no clear plan for the future. Meanwhile, nations like El Salvador and Bhutan are already spearheading the Bitcoin revolution. He warns that the dollar's dominance is crumbling, even as Washington pretends to be in control. In his view, Bitcoin is destined to become the next global standard. For anyone still clinging to fiat, Keiser's message is blunt: you're going down with the ship. The only unknown is how fast the collapse will happen.
Get this straight. So you're afraid of inflation, the uncontrolled money printing by the government to print dollars out of control and kill everyone's purchasing power. So to cure that, you're going to allow private companies to also create money out of thin air and double up on what the government's doing.
It's free banking.
It's inflationary.
Yes.
You're just flooding the system with more worthless fiat money. Stablecoin is shit. It's just worthless shit, just like a dollar. People will say the dollar, but it won't exist anymore. It's just it's an appendage term that will exist in the future that refers to nothing. It doesn't refer to anything in reality. It's just something, it's a term people use, the dollar, but there won't be anything other than a unit of essentially Bitcoin.
Do you think
look at what's happening in Tether. They buy all the interest that they generate by loading up on treasury bills. They buy Bitcoin. At some point, the Bitcoin position will exceed the dollar position, and then the Tether will be backed by Bitcoin, not dollars. 5 years from now.
5 years from now?
Definitely. But look at the rate at which Bitcoin is soon to become a $200 trillion asset. It's like the internet in 1999. It has similar uses of Bitcoin today. So if you look at the internet graph in the 1999 period to 2000, 2001, you went from 300 or 400 million users to 3 billion. So Bitcoin's about to go from 250 million users to 3 billion. So it becomes ubiquitous.
Where would that put the Bitcoin price in today's dollars? I know you know what I mean, right?
Obviously, it puts it at a much higher price, right? I mean, the thing to keep in mind is that there will come a day when no one will accept your dollars for Bitcoin. If you come up with a bag with $10 million, people won't give you one Satoshi for it. I'm not going to give you my Bitcoin for that. So fiat money will have no purchasing power at all. Like in the US, we had during the Civil War. The Continental, I believe it was called, was a currency that the exchange value dropped to zero. But most fiat money goes to zero. Every single fiat money in the world has eventually lost 99 to 100% of the purchasing power. None have survived. The average lifespan is something like 27 years. We've had hundreds of fiat money. None of them have survived. 99 to 100% loss of purchasing power, including the dollar and the British pound. And same thing with the US dollar. It's losing purchasing power every day, and it's going to lose another 90, 95, 98% of its purchasing power.
So you think that the quicker this goes and the higher Bitcoin goes, then we really get like a situation where the central banks and the IMF, they will just become irrelevant? Like really, we can just close down the ECB?
Right, because they have no customers, because the Bitcoiners are going to walk away. They'll just be, they won't be using those central banks. They'll have they'll have several hundred million Bitcoiners with a lot of Bitcoin compared to what you can buy purchasing power wise with any kind of fiat money. And if you have no customers, you have to close up shop. The IMF will have no customers. Nobody will be borrowing money from the IMF anymore because they don't want to borrow fiat money, because I'm still like a capitalist. I'm still a Wall Street guy. I'm still like, I could help you, but if I do, maybe not, because the more you borrow money to fight each other, the more richer I get. And I know you, and there's less competition because you're about to take yourself out of the game. So all of these countries are heading down the same path. They won't be around. Those countries reinvent themselves in the Bitcoin world, and they become decentralized, as I've been saying, so that the citizens own the wealth because they're the node runners, the node nation, and the central bank and the government are just the service provider. Self-custody your Bitcoin, and just stay agile. Get your bug out bag ready by the front door, and be prepared to move quickly in case
you need
the storm washes up at your door. Certainly in Europe, it's incredibly distressed. And in the UK, it's unbelievably distressed. I mean, they're in serious denial about the state of affairs in the UK. The economy is in free fall, and there's no leadership at all. And things are really falling apart in the UK. And Europe is looking pretty bad. And there are places where things are on the upswing. A lot of people talk about the fourth turning, right? Mm-hmm. The fourth turning, this book came out. It's this idea that you have these 20-year cycles of good times, less than good times, bad times, this type of cycle.
The fake money system is cracking. Every institution that once promised stability is now printing just to survive. Governments are drowning in debt, central banks are cornered, and corporations are minting digital dollars to maintain the illusion of value. Bitcoin needs no permission, no rescue plan, and never changes the rules mid-game. While fiat systems keep breaking themselves to stay alive, Bitcoin marches forward block after block. That's why the shift is already underway. Tether is buying more, Wall Street is loading up through ETFs, and even governments are quietly stacking. Max Keiser predicts that in 5 years, no one will call Bitcoin a risk, they'll call it the standard. And by then, nobody will trade their Bitcoin for paper bills. Not for $1 million. Not for anything. For more Daily Dose Crypto news, check out these 2 awesome videos on your screen. Click now and we will see you on the next video.